Good evening. Welcome to Words on Whiskey, episode 59. And the topic is complexity and whiskey. And delighted to have our guests from Lough Ree Distillery. And I apologize for the slight delays and slight freezing on the video here on my side, but we'll fix that by taking me out of the picture. But I'm delighted to welcome you all here. It's an opportunity to talk to a new independent bottler. Not so new, the name will be familiar to you. And we're welcoming our guests from Lough Ree Distillery, the Clancy family, I would like to say. So what I'll do is I'll bring them in and we'll talk about what they've done, where they've been, and what their plans are for the future. So again, if you have any questions, please do put your questions in. I'm sure they'd love to answer your questions and we'll take it from there. So let's bring in the Clancy family. Good evening.
Good evening, Sergius.
Evening, Sergius.
Hello. So I'll just introduce us, I suppose, from right to left. We've got Peter, Sheila, and Michael Clancy, siblings in the Lough Ree Distillery business. You're all very welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Sergius. Thanks. This is like something from the Murphy's Microquism days back in the day, the Clancy family, you know.
We won't have any music, but thank you very much, as I said, for joining. Yeah, I mean, you have a great setup there. You're in your school, your gin school, are you?
Yeah, we're in our gin school here in Churchtown Stores, Dublin 14. So it's going to reopen here in the next couple of weeks. So we've had to keep it closed during COVID, obviously, but yeah, it's a great setting for something like this also.
Yeah, and I mean, you've had great success with your Slingshot gin, and of course as well with the limited releases of the bridge whiskies that you brought out. Let me just maximize you guys here so I don't freeze. So you have a good selection of drink on the table. I hope you haven't been at it for too long.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, look, like I said, you're all very welcome. And tell us where things stand at the moment with yourselves in terms of what you're producing and the gin school as well.
So maybe I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Listen, in a nutshell, we set up in 2018. We launched Slingshot. We might go into that later. You know, and brought out the first of our Bridge series releases Christmas 2019. And we're all guns blazing, I suppose, and then COVID hit. So a lot of the work we'd done on exports and tax-free and those kind of things just ground to a halt. So the last 18 months has really been about getting through COVID and coming out the other end intact as a business. And really now it's about realizing, actually, hang on here a second, the business is much more resilient post-COVID and driving the business on. And that includes... you know, I suppose when we set up this originally, it was, we want to build a distillery. But what becomes apparent to you very quickly is the distillery is only the kind of enabler. You're actually getting involved in the international drinks business. And that's really what we are, is we're a participant in the international drinks business with brands already on the market, with a suite of products, I suppose, coming on stream continuously in the Bridge series. And then, you know, we'll talk about Bart's later on, I'm sure. Yeah. The ultimate aim is really to build out our main distillery building in Lanesboro and get into full-scale commercial whiskey production. Yeah. And that's...
So, you do have an outlet there in Lanesboro at the moment for the gin, obviously. And that gin has been tremendously successful for you. Has it given you the platform to build on then and get recognition?
I suppose it's not just an out. I mean, we have a functioning micro distillery in Lanesboro, fully licensed, fully GI verified bottling facility in Lanesboro. So we're producing there a lot of stuff already. Listen, what it has done is allowed us to grow into the market and learn and understand the market that we're participating in, and you know, ultimately, you know, we're kind of bursting at the seams down there, so we really do need to get the other move into the bigger premises and get that built out and create the ultimate kind of brand home, I suppose.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and what each person brings to the table and how this whole journey started?
Well, I suppose what happened really in the beginning was true to form, mothers and their boys were out for lunch, and the conversation went with regard to what would happen or what use we could put a building that we had in Lanesboro to. And the two boys come up with the idea that, we could put a distillery in that building, or a micro distillery or whatever, we could use it on that. But I suppose Mike's background is in engineering and in ag and food, and he spent about 20 years in the distilling space. Peter's is in engineering, and then mine was originally in hotel management and then went to accountancy. So I suppose in the initial discussions, I wasn't part of it. It was, and then suddenly it became, can you give us a hand here? Can you look at this? Can you do that? So finally, after I'd say 6, 8, 10 months of that kind of thing, it ended up that I came on board with the two guys, and it probably suited me from where I was career-wise at the time as well, So it kind of morphed, if you like, from a concept to a reality fairly quickly, I would say, So, but it started with a conversation around the dinner table.
So you're the responsible one that's
well, I try
looking
my
after
best.
The finance.
Yeah, I try my best. It's not always easy, but I try my best to keep them on their toes.
I think as engineers, your first instinct is to gold plate everything,
Yeah.
And then when Sheila gets involved, well, it happens, but it doesn't always end up gold plated, which is probably a very, very good thing in a small business anyway.
Yeah. So she's the pragmatist, and Mike, you've a kind of an experience, a lot of experience in the food and drink side.
Yeah, so that's right. I was just actually thinking back today. So this Bart's whiskey is a blended whiskey, and it's coming from Great Northern Distillery. But I was just thinking back, this time about 20 years ago, I was actually working on site in Great Northern Distillery when it was the Harp Brewery. So I was working there on and off for a couple of years back in the early 2000s. So yeah, I was working in engineering consultancy, serving the brewery and distillery business and cream liqueurs, spirits business side of the business since about 1998. So basically from then until late 2017, I was working in the consultancy side. So, and probably over the last 10 years of that, I would have been doing a huge amount of work with people both in the craft beer side of things and also in the distillery side of things, both large and small. So people who are looking at projects, some projects will never see the light of day. Some are substantial projects that are now producing whiskey of some renown at this stage. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and I think I always have this thing: every day is a school day. So everywhere you go, you pick up things and you learn things, and when I was consulting, you'd be very much of the thing that you have to keep client confidentiality, but at the same point you can't unlearn things you've already learned. So you pick up a lot of stuff along the way.
I suppose just to complete the story here, I'm like you, Sergius. I'm one of the true mechanical engineers, which I believe you are as well. So
the special chosen one, yeah.
The special anointed ones. And like that, I mean, I spent a decade working in engineering, corporates, that kind of stuff, building materials, pharma. Then went off and did a business degree and ended up on the business side of engineering, working a lot with engineering companies on the commercial side, business development side of their businesses. And then probably the last 10 years is a mixture of kind of doing my own consultancy business. And then somewhere along the line, and I shudder to think how far back this kind of dinner table conversation was, but kind of got sucked into this as well in parallel with Mike, and then we managed to convince Sheila it was a good idea as well. So listen, we're still here,
Yeah, I mean, you really you're fortunate in the family circumstances give you a really great complementary set of skills. But what's it like to actually work with each other?
It's actually, it's fine, you know. So for the most part, you know, sometimes it has its moments, but to be honest, I suppose, like it's a family business, but we're really only half of the family. So we've 3 other siblings who have, you know, I suppose the other 3 have been involved to a lesser extent, both, you know, giving us support from all angles, from practical to, you know, emotional support and whatever else, you know, along the way, you know. But I suppose when it comes to a family occasion or whatever, bar enjoying the spirits, we tend to leave the business element outside the door. And that kind of, I suppose, works. So if we're sitting around a dinner table at home or in any of our houses, we kind of tend to not talk about Lough Ree Distillery. We've kind of become quite good at putting putting work on one side and, you know, home life and family life on the other side. So I think it works fairly well from that point of view.
I was just thinking today about this. Actually, there's 26 in the kind of family group. So there's our mother, 6 siblings, partners and spouses, and there's 13 grandchildren.
Right.
And of the 26, we've either employed or leaned on 20 of those at some point, right?
Okay.
And 2 of them are because our youngest sister Anne, who's coming, is in Canada, and she's coming home next week, and her partner haven't been involved. And the other 4 are simply too young. I mean, it's just not right having 5-year-old kids in bottling spirits. So we kind of draw the line, you know.
Yeah, for the moment.
Well, they'll grow,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, congratulations on being able to separate, you know, the working life, if you like, from the, you know, family life. I'm sure that can be challenging in itself. But, you know, what have been the challenges in starting Slingshot? How did actually starting Slingshot come about? And when I say Slingshot, it was your first release. It's the one that, you know, propelled you to be able, I suppose, being an enabler to do the whiskey business, I assume.
Do you want that?
Yeah, so I think when we started looking at this, we very much, you know, whiskey is the long-term goal, and building our own whiskey distillery is the long-term goal, and distilling our own whiskey in Lanesboro. But you realize fairly quickly when you're looking at this is that you need product to be able to sell. You need to get into the market, and there was a point, I think, in 2017, there was a big food festival in Lanesboro called Taste of the Lakelands, and we were at that, and it was a huge event in Lanesboro, and the 3 of us standing around there, we made a collective decision that this time next year we're going to be here launching our first product, and we're going to make it in Lanesboro. So that was I suppose that drew a line in the sand for us and really pushed us on and said, right, you've jumped off the cliff now, you have to kind of go and do it. So that was I suppose the major turning point for us.
Yeah, I mean, Lanesboro I'm going to put a few pictures up here of Lanesboro, because for those people that don't know Lanesboro, it's a very, very picturesque part of the country, and it doesn't probably get the coverage that it should. But here you can see some of I mean, that's the Shannon, I presume, is it?
That's the Shannon, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, leading out onto Lough Ree there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, it's a fantastic spot. I mean, you know, to us, this was the Mediterranean when we were growing up. We were swimming just there where you see that boat. Fine summer's days in Lanesboro were superb. So we grew up there, and, you know, we have this kind of innate love of the place. And I suppose not just that, the potential that's in the place. And to a certain degree, it's been, you know, Bordnamona and ESB were located in Lanesboro since the 1940s. So to a certain degree, the amenity that was on our doorstep hasn't been utilized to the full. Whereas now, you know, I think Bordnamona and ESB are gone. We might talk about that later. And people are starting to turn towards the lake. So, I mean, if you look at just there, nearly where those swans are, every evening all summer long, there's 100 people going in, swimming, training for triathlons, training for whatever. It's, you know, it's beautiful. So, and nearly COVID and the kind of staycationing, an awful lot more people have discovered Lanesboro. There's been an awful lot more traffic on the Shannon. And sure, we don't have the mountains and we don't have the sea that other places have, but we have we have equal beauty in our eyes down there, and there's a kind of serenity about the place that maybe you don't find in other places. And simplicity is the wrong word, but there's a pace to life that is very nice there.
And I think interesting thing, sir, just one of the images you have up there, I think that's a picture from a local photographer called Bridget Malooly. And a number of years ago, she started taking pictures of sunsets. She took a picture of the sunset every day. So we're like the sunset capital of Ireland because we have this huge sky, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful vista every evening. And loads of people come and take photos there, and loads of people come to watch the sunset in Lanesboro because we just have this massive sky. So it's a fantastic place.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely stunning. And I think the one positive thing that COVID has done is it's made us look inwards and local. And hopefully now the place gets a lot more visitors as well. And
yeah, I mean, and listen, sometimes things happen. I mean, Centre Parks is located 20 kilometres up the road from us in Ballymahan. So, you know, there's 2,000 people a night staying in Centre Parks. You know, that's going gangbusters. So there's all of these people passing through the Midlands all of a sudden on their way to Centre Parks or on their way home from Centre Parks. And they're starting to realise, hang on here a second, this is gorgeous around here.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much a rural village or town. I don't know if you'd call it a town, but rural village certainly. But how big a blow was it when Bord na Móna and the ESB pulled out?
Massive, I would say. If you think about it, they've been there since the 1940s. Bord na Móna are there since the 1940s. ESB, first power station, was mid-50s. At the height of those, I mean, I don't have the exact figures, but there could have been 400 people working in each of those organizations permanently, and then a whole heap of casual staff during the summer harvesting on the bogs. You know, by the time it closed, there was probably about 40 people working in the power station because it was modernized and everything else, and there was probably 70 or 80 people working on Bord na Móna. And some of those guys have been retained, but you know, you take a small community like Lanesboro and you take, you know, 50, 80, 100 wage packets, good wage packets every week out of it. It has an impact.
Yeah, of course.
And
your parents made their way there to teach. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mike, you want to?
Yeah. No, I was just saying, I think it's not so as much as the kind of wage packets. It's nearly the kind of sense of an end of an era, which was very much a thing because people came to work in Lanesboro from all over Ireland, and they came sort of 50 years ago, and built their careers, built their livelihoods and their families in Lanesboro. So, you know, when we were in school, there was people from every county in Ireland in the class or whose parents were from every county in Ireland in the class because they'd come from, you know, lots of different counties to work in Bord na Móna or ESB. So it was a very diverse and busy place when we were growing up.
Just to pick up on the point you were saying there about our parents coming there again, and if you follow the kind of logical path of this, you know, Bord na Móna set up, ESB set up. Bord na Móna built their own machinery to harvest the bogs. So by the kind of late 50s, there was a need for technical education. There was a need for apprentices. So they opened a technical school in Lanesboro, and there was 5 teachers in it the first day it opened, and one of them was our dad and the other was our mum. So my dad was our dad was a was a metalwork teacher. God, yeah, he'd be turning in his grave if he thought he was a home economics teacher. And our mum was a home economics teacher, and I suppose cold winter nights in Lanesboro or whatever, you know, or Eddie Kelly's cinema or whatever worked, and you know, it all happened, and there was 6 of us as a result, you know. So
and there you are.
A nice kind of circular story.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a real community story. Other than what you're doing, what's the local employment then? I mean, what is it? Agriculture? Is it tourism?
Probably a mix of both. There's probably quite a few industries in you know, in Longford Town and Roscommon Town and that, but like I suppose locally in Lanesboro, it's probably you know, there's no real big industry employers. A lot of people that live in Lanesboro would commute would commute to bigger towns or whatever for employment. Centre Parks, there's a lot of people, local people would be, employed in Centre Parks, but there are some very substantial industries in kind of the surrounding towns and that. But like you have a lot of people that, you'd have a number of people that basically choose to live in Lanesboro and are still working in Dublin or whatever and commuting by train, and possibly 3 days a week or 4 days. Some of them are really glad that COVID hit and they couldn't go to work, So like there's probably more remote working now in the last 12 months than there was prior to that. But it allows people to base and have their family life.
You have a lot of blow-ins from the smoke then coming to Lanesboro. Taking out.
Yeah.
There's a very nice comment there from Daniel O'Neill. Nice to hear you all live from Lanesboro. Your dad was my teacher. So it just goes to show,
Yes, we know
the impact. Daniel, do you?
Daniel is connecting in from Virginia in the States. So
no way.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, hello, Daniel.
Thank you very much for joining. I think he's actually called Joe O'Neill, but his passport says Daniel, so he has to call himself Daniel.
He's coming under official
merit.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how you set up initially then, and also I'm interested to find out, probably from Mike, the crossover and the similarities between the brewing side and the craft beer side and those skills that you would have brought to distilling and setting up the micro distillery.
Yeah, well, I suppose I would have been involved in both kind of the brewery side and the distillery side. So, I think over years I would have had kind of interaction with suppliers and vendors from, all sorts of scales, big suppliers and big companies and smaller companies as well, both on the client side and the supplier side. But if you think of brewing and distilling, so you can't distill whiskey without brewing it first. So essentially, the front end of the process is largely the same. You don't put hops in, and you don't boil it, but everything else is pretty much the same. So you still have to ferment, and then after that is where it diverges. But there's a lot of similarities in terms of the equipment, in terms of the raw materials you're using. And in terms of how you handle them and how you treat them. So that's, you'd have picked up an awful lot of that over the years and know where to go to find stuff. And I suppose picked up the things that you don't know and know where to find out that sort of information as well. I think that's a very important skill as well along the way is kind of not necessarily having everything at the top, at the tip of your tongue, but being able to know where to find it and being able to know who can help you out.
Yeah, a nice comment there from Sarah. Thanks to Lough Ree for the great Christmas team event. So obviously you're having an impact on the local community, which is, part of the beauty of what a distillery can actually bring to the local community. I don't know if you know Cyril.
Yeah, Cyril is his company actually. They did our gin school at home kit. They did that for their Christmas team event last year. So that was a bit of fun. It was good.
I mean, just on what you're saying there, and whether it was COVID related or what it was, but definitely over the last year we've seen much more kind of traction where people are ordering stuff from us or connecting with us or whatever, and ultimately somewhere along the line they sort of say, yeah, well, actually I'm from Longford, or my dad is from Longford, or I'm from Roscommon, and I like what you guys are doing and keep it up. And, so it kind of works both ways that ultimately in time, we hope we'll be, a major force in the locality, but, you're not going to get there without that kind of support from the people in that locality and the people in the community. And I mean, the people of Lanesboro have been fantastic. I mean, there isn't a guy in Lanesboro you could pick up the phone with and ask him for something that wouldn't, go out of his way to help you. And that's just been the way from the get-go. And it's not even just Lanesboro, it's the whole county of Longford. I mean, everyone, the enterprise board in Longford, the county council, all the kind of regulatory environment there is really, really positive. And if you think about it, they managed to convinced Centre Parks that locating in Longford was a really good idea, and do a
Yeah.
€1 billion project in the middle of a forest.
Is that how big it was?
Pretty, I think it was 800 and something million.
Yeah.
Was maybe I'm wrong now. Maybe it was only 300 million, but only 300
Only
million.
300
Yeah,
million.
yeah. You know, and they're doing an extension now, I think, which is only 80 million, right? But you know, that doesn't happen without a really positive regulatory environment as well, and that's there. There's a real kind of you know, can-do attitude down there. I mean, you know,
I have to say, I mean, even just going through Lanesboro and visit, there is an energy about the place, you know, a bit of vitality, and that was during COVID. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like when COVID goes and people are back to their full daily lives.
That's only in the daytime, Sergius. If you come after kind of 9 o'clock at night now, there's a whole other vitality and everything else in Lanesboro.
A few lock-ins, I'm sure, somewhere in Lanesboro.
No, we wouldn't have any of that.
No. Yeah, actually, you have some fabulous bars there, but they were closed when I was there, maybe 2 months ago. They were still closed.
You didn't know the right entry points, Sergius.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that would be me. But sure. But look, you mentioned there the enterprise board, and I think they often don't get the credit they deserve. Obviously, they played a significant role and really bought into the idea. So presumably you came up with the idea, you formulated a business plan, and then you started engaging with the local enterprise board. Is that what happened, or?
Yeah. I mean, there's a guy called Mick Nevin down there who's the head of the Leo in Longford. Top class guy. He was probably one of the first people we spoke to about this, and from that good day to this, he's been nothing only supportive to us, and anything he can do, so again, it's just reflective of the kind of can-do attitude or the progressive attitude that these guys have down there, and you know, ultimately we'll probably outgrow the enterprise board and we'll end up in the Enterprise Ireland pot, I imagine, but for the moment we're there. And you know, and it kind of works both ways as well, because, you know, the enterprise board is there to facilitate business starting up and growing and creating jobs. And we're kind of doing what it says on the tin a small bit. So, you know, he can see, okay, we're supporting and investing in these guys, and yeah, it's coming back. You know, they are doing they're growing their business. They're creating employment. They're you know, putting the area on the map somewhat from a tourism perspective, which all kind of feeds the ecosystem, if you want.
Absolutely, yeah. Everything has a knock-on effect, and I think it's important that we draw that. So somebody's saying some people are enjoying the slingshot. I think they're diving in. So that's Teresa Gillen. It always amazed me that, you know, and that's not to belittle Lanesboro, but it's not the largest city in the world, but to have reach and have customers across the globe must be quite exhilarating for you. You know, satisfying, I suppose, to see that your bottle reaches Pennsylvania and different parts of the States. What are your main markets?
Well, I'd we're a long way from having product all across the globe. You know, but we get there. Listen, really, for the moment, it's domestic market and some European markets. So Belgium, Italy, Germany, some online presence in Estonia and the UK, and you know, and some of that has actually happened through COVID, to be honest with you. So
yeah, you pivoted very quickly to, or were you always selling online from the very beginning?
In a very small way, but when COVID happened, we really put focus on it and in developing that and getting that route to market up and running. And I think, you know, we really got it humming, and kind of you could see the effect of, once you start to promote stuff, you could actually see the effect of selling, the effect on sales of doing some promotion, and you can actually get the visibility of it, of selling directly yourselves or selling through your own channel.
Yeah, I mean, in one way, I'd imagine that COVID was somewhat of a leveler in terms of being able to reach market. You know, online, it, you know, is a bit of a leveler.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, you know, it's easy to look back now. Hopefully, COVID is over. It's not over, but you know, it seems to be in a controllable position. And sort of say, oh yeah, you know, we purposely did this or we purposely did that. You know, a lot of the time it was, your strategy went from being 5 years to 5 minutes sometimes, right? And you know, it was about recognizing that, okay, the lifeblood of business is cash flow, and what can we do? What opportunities are there to bring cash or to keep cash coming into the business? And you know, like some of the stuff we did, hand sanitizer dispensers, we did gin school at home kit, the online presence. You know, even last summer, summer just gone, we opened a coffee container down at the back of our distillery site. Okay.
Yes.
And it was all this notion of saying, hang on, there's opportunity there in the first instance, and the entrepreneurs in us kind of, I've either got good at spotting some of those opportunities, and the beauty of a small business is flexibility to be able to do stuff. And you know, I suppose it's easy to look back now. I mean, it's damn hard work. There's no two ways about it. But to be honest with you, as a business, I think that challenging that COVID brought to us has actually, you know, it forced us to step up to the plate. And you know, we've had to knuckle down, work hard. Not that we weren't anyway, but have a slightly different mindset, have a more challenging mindset, have a more cost-conscious mindset. All of these things which are very, very good for a business in terms of discipline. COVID kind of reinforced those to us, right? And no better woman than Sheila then when she starts wearing her cost-conscious hat. Well, you know, if you're on a cost-conscious regime, well, Sheila will implement it for you. There's no two ways about that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm always impressed by you know, smaller businesses. You know, because for smaller businesses, it is a matter of survival. So just the speed at which they can pivot, you know, and change their direction and adapt to the circumstance. But it must be, you know, great confidence builder as well to see that, you know, you've ridden this storm. You know, other challenges in the future will be different, but you will be able to adapt and hopefully move through those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so, and like, you know, we've a good crew that work with us that, you know, on a full-time basis and part-time basis, you know, so, and without their input, and, you know, it's fine for us saying, yeah, let's do this, but we need to, you know, we need our crew on board. And like, I suppose our main manager in the facility, Mike Sorahan, you know, he has, I'd say sometimes, and particularly during COVID, he probably turned around and thought, oh my God, here they're coming again with another harebrained idea, you know. But ultimately, like, he's the backbone of our facility in, you know, in Lanesboro on a day-to-day basis, you know, and without him and our other part-time people and people like that, like, we certainly wouldn't be, you know, where we are today, and we wouldn't be able to implement. We would, like, that's where the flexibility comes from, is because we're working with people that are really good at being flexible with us, you know. So without that, it wouldn't.
Yes, and
it
listen,
wouldn't work.
They get it. I suppose they get what we're trying to do. They're you know, okay, they've bought into, listen, this, you know, they're in early in something which has massive potential, right? And it's, you know, it's on this fantastic journey, and, you know, every day that journey can go straight, left or right, backwards or whatever, right? And you know, it's like you know, I'm sure guys taking cocaine or whatever get a similar rush somewhere, but it is it's just a buzz. It's just and again, we're fortunate the people who work with us have bought into that, and I'm sure, and listen, that's not I suppose belittling the drudgery that's in it for us and for them at times as well. There's a lot of mundane stuff goes on, but, you know, by and large, if the curve is rising in general and the business is driving on, people get enthused by that, and you know, the rising tide brings the whole thing.
Yeah, actually, let me share the where it started, I guess. So this is your equipment at the moment, your gin still. So this is responsible for kicking you off. Where do you stand now then in terms of have you the capability to produce whiskey now at the moment, or is that going to be part of the new distillery?
So, well, it will be part of the new distillery, but we are looking at producing whiskey in a very small way on this within the next couple of months. So we've been progressing that discussion as well, and I think that's about just getting ourselves into that side of the business, starting to do some trials, starting to develop, the way we want to go with our larger distillery. We won't be producing massive amounts of whiskey, but we will be producing a small amount.
Yeah, and at the moment, so well, here you have the bridge whiskies, and again, these are very limited in number, and I think they sold out extremely quickly, from what I remember. They were sold online primarily, weren't they?
The first few weren't. Probably the first two weren't. Last year, I suppose the ones we released last year were a kind of a tribute to the power generation and peat harvesting, industry at Lanesboro over a 70-year period. So they sold very, very well, as in sold out practically before Christmas. And I think the next release we had was St. Mel's, which was a collaboration with St. Mel's Brewery in Longford. And, listen, again, without any great kind of strategic thought process around it, was saying, let's try and pre-sell this online. Okay. Yeah. And we did. So pre-release, 50% of that was sold. And then, probably 80% of the remainder was sold online also. So, so what we've kind of done there is nearly built up a community of people who are following us, collecting us, like our product, like maybe the variety that comes from the bridge in terms of each one is a different whiskey, could be a different starting whiskey, different finish. That's that kind of bodes very, very well for the future. I mean, the inherent difficulty in that is, you kind of reach a point where you're about to release something and you've already got it all allocated.
Yes.
And we're not far off that.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably, the genesis for the Bart's whiskey. Okay. Yes. So once you, and like we could see this. So we released our first whiskeys under the bridge coming into Christmas 2019. In January, February 2019, we were getting inquiries from all kinds of places. Oh, have you got Irish whiskey? Have you got Irish whiskey? Because now we put the flag up. Okay. Yeah, we have Irish whiskey, but like 10 cases of it. Okay. Yeah. So, obviously then COVID happened and all the rest, but the conversations didn't really stop. So we still were having these guys coming to us saying, well, I'm interested in Irish whiskey. And these were guys coming from export markets. So you kind of join all the dots on that and say, well, hang on here a second. It might be the cleverest thing in the world to turn around and say, listen, we have some of this really expensive whiskey here under the Bridge series, or you can wait 5 years and we'll have something else for you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there's an opportunity there. You've started all of these conversations. There's an opportunity to come up with and develop a product which is going to plug into that gap, but also which is good for the business.
Yeah. I mean, is it a double-edged sword? It's great that you can take these releases and that they're successful and they sell out and they almost pre-sell out. But is there the danger then that, people get fed up and say, well, look, I can't get any of this stuff?
Yeah, there's a bit of that. I mean, I think, but that's, I suppose, I think there's lots of people out there who've sat on online trying to get a particular Dunville's release or something else like that and seen it sell out quickly before their eyes and not being able to get it. So, I think that's just the nature of the game in terms of having limited edition whiskies. And the thing about the Bridge series is they're all single casks to date. So they're all, between, say, 200 to 700, 800 bottles, depending on whether they're a small cask or a normal size cask or a sherry butt. So that's the extent of them,
Is there a signature trademark to the whiskey release? Is there something that defines taste-wise or marketing wise, the whiskies that you have released to date?
Well, on the bridge ones, there wouldn't be any singular thing that defines them from a taste point of view, because they're all different whiskies. And we've released liquid that has come from Cooley, from Bushmills, from Great Northern, and the stuff from Great Northern was peated whiskey, so they're very different and distinct from a flavor profile, and I suppose that's the beauty of it. But in terms of from a kind of a marketing point of view or a selling point of view, the whole idea of this is it is a series. So there's elements of it that the label is largely the same. They have this bridge motif on the bottom of the label, and then the format of the label is pretty much the same, but we change elements of it depending on what liquid is in the bottle, and then there's different tasting notes or whatever, and the ABV might be different as well. So, but in general, the look and feel of the bottle is pretty much the same. The thing is, when you line them up, for the lucky people out there who started collecting them, when you line them up, they're all going to be different colored liquids, because they're different cask finishes, or they're different liquids starting off. So some of them are quite pale, some of them are deep, rich, kind of reddish colors.
Yeah. What's the process then, in practical terms, of actually sitting down and determining what blends that you want to mix together and what you want to achieve?
Just before Mike, I'm going to let Mike jump in on that, but it's I suppose the bridge series aren't blends; they're single.
Sorry,
cask.
single malt.
Right.
So
the
finish.
Cask. So the finish. Well, actually, I'll let Mike take it from there. So we found our strengths and weaknesses here.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, and I'll be perfectly honest and upfront. When we started off, looking at buying whiskey, it was a case of, it's very much a seller's market for aged whiskey. So, we bought what we could when we could afford to buy it, and as much of it as we could afford to buy. So then it was a case of, right, with this liquid, then let's look at what, we want to add value to it, put our own spin on it. So we did go out and source kind of different casks, and look at, right, what do we think would work well with that particular style of whiskey. Some of them were, taking a chance. We did tune into Ali as well, Ali Alpine, who's been involved with us as well from the start. So we did tune into Ali's experience as well on it, and took counsel from him on some things. But some of it, we, like others in the industry, we've tried some things. Some of them haven't worked as well as we thought they would. We've had to not release them yet. They're still work in progress, So I think
Sure.
And it's very much a case of, and that's one of the beauties of being involved in the whiskey business is, it's a touchy, feely, tasty game, and you have to work on that until you refine it to something that's actually fit to go out there with your name on it.
Like I think I got a delivery in the door yesterday from Celtic of Bernard Walsh's the Writer's Tears, the Inchkillen.
The ice wine.
The ice wine, right?
Yes.
And I think in the kind of verbiage on that, he talks about this is the was it the 23rd or 27th release in his pursuit of trying to find the perfect whiskey, right?
Yeah.
So and there's a man who's at it an awful lot longer than we are. So I think it's one of those things that's never ending.
Yeah. And I think, I suppose, what this allows us to do is we're trying different things, and we're seeing how different flavor profiles work. And ultimately, when we have our own whiskey that we're distilling ourselves, elements of this will inform what we do with casks there as well.
Yeah, I'm actually very impressed with the aged stock that you did source for the bridge. It was good quality, well aged, and disappeared very, very quickly. But I mean, there's a big variety between them in terms of the finish, like Pomolorasso sherry to wine finishes, pure bourbon finishes. Was there a cognac one as well?
No, we haven't done a cognac one. We haven't done a
Sorry,
cognac
red
one.
wine.
there's red wine. We have a one of the ones that we have out currently is it's called Rindoon, but it's a Montpeziliac finish, which is a sweet wine from France. It's beside Sauternes in France, and that was, again, I suppose, opportunistic discussion with somebody. We got our hands on a cask of that, and we said, look, let's try it, and we're, again, very, very happy with how that turned out. So,
and if people want to buy, do they go to your website? Is that the best place to go? Lough Ree Distillery, LRD.ie, isn't it?
LRD.ie.
LRD.ie. Yeah. We would also be in Celtic, and for anyone tuning in from Germany, irishwhiskies.de would have us as well.
Yeah. Presumably you have to be extremely resourceful, and I guess you're at a disadvantage in that you don't have the buying power of a bigger outfit, and you have to be really on the lookout for something different and make the most of it. Is that a huge challenge for you?
I suppose the way to answer that, Sergius, is ignorance is bliss. Nearly sometimes, that when we started this, we were able to find stuff and through various auspices, and we kind of agreed to buy it, and we probably set Mike on the journey of saying, right, you look after finding the casks to put this in, because I don't think myself or Sheila would be the ones to do that. And so sure. I mean, I think other guys have adopted different strategies where they've gone out and bought shed loads of stuff. Now they could afford to buy shed loads of stuff, and they've gone very, very big into kind of creating a market for themselves with that age stock pre their own distilleries coming on stream, or some of them haven't even got distilleries or will never have distilleries coming on stream, right?
Yeah.
And the jury's probably still out on that. I think if you ask some of those guys, they'll kind of go, God, I'm not sure that was the smartest move either. So it's are we at a disadvantage? Yes, we were, but have we an awful lot of money tied up in whiskey stock? No, we don't. So
well, there's the other side of it, of course. Yeah.
And I think the with anyone probably within the last, say, maybe four years, maybe or so, anyone who was looking for whiskey for age stock for any money, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't available. Even small, even getting single barrels of it, just wasn't available for any price. Because there was loads of people within the industry looking for it, and even people contacted us to know, had we got this, had we got that, or whatever, and just but I think. And this is one of the things that I think in the development and maturity of the industry is that now you have much more stock coming on stream. There's 5-year-old whiskey available now from the likes of Great Northern. That's good quality stock, and that will ease those supply issues going into the future.
Yeah, I suppose it's just one of those challenges of trying to grow the business organically. Is you don't have the financial clout, but then you're more resourceful on what you do buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look here at. I want to share the future kind of plans for the distillery, if I may, and you can maybe talk us through these. So let's see if I can do that. Okay, I mean the drawings look very impressive. So are you seeing that there?
Yeah, we can see that. So let's work from right to left on this. So currently what's on the site is the building on the very right hand side, not the one just at the very bottom of the picture, but the bigger one behind that with the little window in the gable end.
Yes.
So that's there currently, and actually we have our offices located in that building. That's an old coach house. It's a 3-story building, built in 1806, right? And an interesting fact about that, without boring you, was in the 1901 census, there was a Mulligan man lived in that building. And I remember saying to my mother, I'd researched this Mulligan man, and she said he was my mother's uncle. So our granduncle, or was he great granduncle, lived in that building on the 1901 census. So stepping back from that, then so the aim there is to turn that into the visitor side of the house with some offices. Stepping back from that, then is the building with the kind of 5 windows on the gable end that you can see.
Yes.
Is a kind of a link building which has stairs, welfare facilities, all of that stuff in it. And then what you see next from there is the kind of main distillery, if you like. So that you have the 2 big grain silos.
Yeah.
You know, they'll feed into the mill and the brewing end of the house, which will actually be up towards the right of that building. And the fermenters will be literally on the other side of that, against the wall, and kind of behind those grain silos in that kind of space there, we'll have the 3 stills, and there's a big picture window looking out onto the car park. The other side of this view is the public car park in Lanesboro, which has got about 100 spaces in it. So the idea is that you'll have this big kind of picture window that looks out onto the car park, so visitors can kind of see the attractive copper stills from the outside. Kind of stepping down along, then you've got a separate kind of area for gin or white spirits distilling. So a smaller still, we'll relocate the still we have over there, and we have a 1,000-litre still coming as well for that. Then you've got a vatting area, a casking area, and then some kind of bottling and storage. And the last bit then that you can kind of see on the left, obviously, like a lot of other distilleries, we have a cask program, and the intent is that the casks we sell will be stored on the ground floor of that, about 300 casks, with some kind of glass floor, and we have a library then on top of that. And you might notice there's a window in that which is angled, so that looks directly out on the lake. That's the whole idea of that. So
very nice.
So when I always joke with the planner in Longford, the 2 of us talk about sitting in our armchairs over these casks of whiskey, sipping something nice, looking down the lake. So and it'll happen one of these days. So that's it in a nutshell.
It's a big enough building, actually.
Yeah, now you can see it from the other side. Yeah. So it's
there will be a visitor centre.
There will be a visitor centre, yeah. So the idea is that the visitor centre is here at the front. This building at the front. It's on 3 floors, so it will be visitor centre, retail entrance there where you see that shop front, and some tasting bars and that in that building, and then this kind of exclusive tasting lounge down at the back end. We call it the library at Lough Ree. So that's will you
be able to do corporate events, or is that part of the?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything up to kind of 50 people. I think we'd certainly be looking at doing it. I mean, really, and probably emphasize this point at this stage in the project. The imperative is get making whiskey. So get the production unit of this built and functioning, and get laying down our own whiskey. The other elements of it, will follow. Maybe not in exactly the same sequence, but it's really about laying down our own whiskey, because in 5 years, 6 years, 8 years time, that's where the dividend comes.
Yeah. Have you you mentioned there that you were looking at triple distilling, or you were getting 3 stills? So I presume that would be the case. So what's the style of whiskey you're looking to produce?
So the core product that we plan is triple distilled single pot still whiskey, but we'll also be set up that we can double distill, and the plan is that we would also kind of campaign some other malt whiskies in there as well. So I suppose when we started off, we probably wouldn't have been looking at doing peated malt, but I think that's probably come on the radar now. So an assumption certainly I think we'd like to do. And there's all this talk about terroir in the whiskey industry, and it's something we come up with Slingshot has peat in it, but I think we're very much in the center of the heartlands of Ireland, and the peat heartlands of Ireland. Absolutely. And I think it'll be kind of very interesting to do something with local peat in our whiskey.
Yeah. Just to touch on one thing I'm aware of is that you are members of the Irish Whiskey Association, and I don't want to say unusually for the smaller or the newer distillery. I mean, you're very much on the contributing side of that as well, in terms of sharing your knowledge and your experiences. And I think on several different fronts. Can you tell us a little bit about your interaction and involvement with the Irish Whiskey Association and why you decided to go down that route?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's the the main industry body in the whiskey, but also in the spirit space.
Yeah. And
once you kind of enter the space and you get talking to people and you go to a few events, you realize the value that's inherent in it. That it's, sure, there's a financial aspect to it, but you actually get an awful lot more back out of it in terms of networking, building up a network. There's a huge kind of collegiality in it, and you're current and informed about what's happening in the space.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned about being involved in it. So I chaired a small business committee, and again, here's just an example. So through the course of this year, we gave a very detailed submission. Canvassed all the different members, and gave a very detailed submission on the EIS scheme, which there was some changes announced in the budget last week, and again on the back of that, only this week I know there's been direct contact between the association and the Minister for Finance in terms of how, that gets kind of structured in the finance bill. So, you might look at it and say, oh, well, you can't impact or you can't do anything. But, there's it kind of spawns that level of engagement there, which ultimately is in the interests of ourselves, but in the interests of all the other members of the Whiskey Association too. So, yeah. I mean, Mike is also...
I think it's one of the things about being involved in it is it keeps you up to date with upcoming trends, and there's a very professional team in there as well. So there's a lot of things going on in the drinks business, new regulations, changing regulations, changing requirements, promotional opportunities, trade missions and activities. And the Irish Whiskey Association have a team of professional people who are working on this 24/7 on our behalf and on behalf of all the other members. And when I say the Irish Whiskey Association, I mean the Whiskey Association and Drinks Ireland. So there's a team of really good people in there, and if there's an issue with anything, you can pick up the phone and you can get a response. You can get feedback from them. And sometimes I'm on the knowledge committee. I'm chairing the knowledge committee in there, and one of the things we're talking about is mentoring. So basically, where you can access a body of knowledge, whether that's from some of the other distilleries, whether that's Middleton or whether it's from some of the newer distilleries who've been involved. I see John Cashman coming in there. So
yeah,
I know
that's high praise from John.
Yeah. Thanks,
so
John.
So I know John has been involved in the trade and promotion committee and has a huge wealth of experience to bring to bear. So there's a lot of kind of industry networking there that happens, and that's all part of the trade association, and we're very proud and happy to be part of it.
I think, I mean, sometimes it boils down to a very practical level. I mean, I know on the small business side of things, there's a WhatsApp group. Yes. So, you're likely to get either ask a question or get a question on that of somebody saying, here, listen, I'm having a problem shipping to the UK. Who is everyone else using? Yeah. Or what about insurance? The insurance market has changed here due to Brexit or whatever. And all of these little things. So it for guys like us, there's a huge amount of saving you reinventing the wheel, right? Yeah. We're all on the same journey, and that's where the kind of collegiality thing I was talking about. I think there's 46 members in the Whiskey Association, and more coming on stream, I believe. There's very few of those that you couldn't pick up the phone to and wouldn't kind of take your call immediately or ring you back in a very short period of time, and wouldn't be very open with anything you asked them. And like we've done it, people have done it with us, and that benefit is immeasurable. It really is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Definitely. Listen, it's an auspicious day as well, and Firstly, I want to thank you very much for doing us the honor of your new release, which you're announcing worldwide today, and delighted that you've decided to partner with us and actually showcase your new release. Do you want to introduce this new release to us and tell us a little bit about it and maybe why you went about it? So I'll just take a picture of that up and people can see that. I have a bottle here too. So the star of the show, if you
Star
like.
of the show, right? So Bart. So our dad was Bart Clancy, and I'll let Mike talk about the whiskey, but I'll give you the kind of backstory or the rationale behind this. So our dad was Bart Clancy. He was a teacher. He was also a very, very good dad. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. And, you know, somewhere in the middle of the last decade or a bit later than that, we started this fantastic journey of, you know, building a distillery in our hometown. And there's been so many times over the last, you know, 3 years, 5 years, where either individually or collectively, you've kind of thought, God, Dad would have loved that, right? Whether that was something like the still, he would have been all over the still, right? The wood in the casks, he would have been all over that. The design of the distillery, he would have been all over that. He was a technically minded person, okay? So he loved all of that stuff. And, you know, he was a great man to solve a problem. I mean, he came from an era where people didn't buy new stuff. They fixed the stuff they already had, right? Yeah. So he was a metalwork teacher. He was tremendous with his hands. He could do anything with his hands. So, you know, when we came to kind of looking at releasing a blend, the primary thing is we probably felt his influence was missing. You know, I alluded to the 26 in the family and how much we've leaned on them. But we've missed having him as part of this journey. And I think calling this whiskey after him allows us to make him part of the journey going forward, but also to inspire us. You know, it's you know, I suppose it's not something you do lightly, go out and call product after your father. So, you know, I think there's an onus on us then to fulfill that, to do his memory justice by, number one, creating a great product, but by two, then, you know, getting it out there and getting that out to the world. You know, so that's where the inspiration bit is. I mean, Mike, the detail of the...
Yeah, so again, so I suppose this was on the liquid side. You know, we very much wanted to produce something that was, you know, and I think what we've done with our other products, with Slingshot and with our other products, is we've produced something that adds to the category that we're in. So we're not just producing something that's a samey product. So with this, we set out to do something that would be a whiskey that you could enjoy just as comfortably on the rocks, or neat, or something that would, you know, you wouldn't be afraid to mix it. You could have it in a long drink, or it would work well in cocktails. So that was our kind of goal and vision when we set out to make it. So basically, with the liquid, we decided we'd work with the guys up in Great Northern. Again, you know, we know what they're at for a long time, and very comfortable with what they're doing up there. So, and you know, I think anyone in the industry who's been up to Brian Watts and been into his room up there, his blending room, it's like a sweet shop, like a candy shop. So, the choice up there, I suppose, was endless. But we had a kind of a fairly clear vision for what we were doing when we went in there. So we very much wanted to have a significant or a reasonable pot still component in there, for kind of texture and also for flavor. So there's a good chunk of that in there. There's obviously a kind of a grain base, and then, you know, we added in rye, again, based on kind of preference and choice and liking rye whiskies. And, you know, I think one of my favorite whiskies to date of the newest Irish whiskies has been the Kilbeggan rye. So that was something that kind of, I suppose, inspired us. So there's a chunk of rye in there, and then we've got Oloroso sherry cask whiskey for sweetness, and then we wanted a touch of peat in there. Again, not a massive amount, but we wanted a touch of peat in there to give a hint of smoke and to give depth to the whiskey. So it's quite a complex blend. We landed on the grain and the pot still percentages reasonably quickly. But the others took us some time to kind of assemble and put together and figure out which went where and how much of each of the components we needed in the blend. So that kind of very much relates to the branding that we have around this, which is around the clock and the complexity of the clock and putting together.
And that's what your father was interested in. He was fascinated by watches and clocks.
That was his pastime.
His pastime was and again, he was brilliant at solving problems. So, and the way he solved the problem was he kind of broke it down into the individual pieces, and you solve each piece and then you put them back together again. And the clock was the I suppose the ultimate expression of that. That he'd go off to auctions and he'd come back with boots full of the greatest junk you thought there ever was, right? And her mother was no different now. She was his accomplice in this, right?
Oh, really? Was she? Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they'd go off and they'd come back at all hours of the morning with bootloads of stuff, right? And but he'd dissect that and take it apart, and he'd meticulously put it back together again. And even then getting the time right on it was, there was the garage, and then when stuff was ready, they get moved into the house because the house was the ambient temperature, and everything had to kind of heat up to the ambient temperature. And he'd be adjusting pendulums by millimeters, and so this kind of complexity, he was brilliant at it, and he had fantastic patience for it. So really the kind of complexity of the whiskey ties in very neatly. And we sat down looking at branding and looking at brand stories and all this. There was this kind of hidden gem there. And Zilma, our good friend in Board Bia, who's kept us on the straight and narrow over a long time, was very well able to kind of point that out to us and steer us in that direction. I suppose and that kind of the kind of story was nearly staring us in the face. Maybe we couldn't kind of see it, or we needed a prod, or we needed somebody to kind of shake us and say, "Here, lads, this is gold dust here," and it kind of matched very well with the complexity of the blend. And it's an awfully complex business, so it matches very well with the complexity of the business. And a family business is complex, so there's all kinds of analogies and metaphors and everything else. So it's really, really a good fit, I think. And again, before I forget this, we have to give a shout out here to the guys in Slater Design and Sinead. They've done a fantastic job on this. We really.
What's their name again, so we can catch that?
Slater Design.
Yeah.
And Sinead and the team there.
It's a very fresh yet complex and elegant design. I have to say, there's a lot going on, but it's actually crisp and clear. And I have the bottle, and you were telling me this bottle is lighter than the normal bottle you might.
Yeah, so it's something, again, when we started looking at this, we very much wanted to go down the direction of setting ourselves up on a proper front from a sustainability point of view. So this bottle is significantly lighter than a lot of bottles for equivalent products in the industry. So it's about 35 to 40% lighter than equivalent products, which, I was looking at something in relation to carbon footprint of whiskey distilling, and the distilling process is number one, but the bottle is number two. So it's a significant chunk of our impact on the planet is the bottle. So basically, being able to find a bottle that was lightweight but still had a kind of premium look and feel to it was something that we're very happy that we've been able to achieve.
It's a very unusual bottle in the sense, in the base, the way it kind of almost drilled out the hollowness at the bottom, but
Yeah, so it's got
even
this,
the way it tapers.
this punt in the bottom, which is kind of, I suppose, nearly a signature. If we've got it in our other products in the bridge bottle and in the Slingshot bottle, but so the punt is there as well, which is kind of a reference across to them. But yeah, this curvature it just makes it a really comfortable bottle to hold. I was just talking to a barman yesterday evening, and he was saying, yeah, that's really, really nice in the hand. It's a lovely bottle. It's light, but it's also lovely to grip and lovely to pour. So that's something that, we're very happy that we're getting that sort of feedback unprompted from people in the trade.
Well, look, one thing I'm impressed with, and I have to give credit. Obviously, it's a lovely piece there about your father as well. For fear of making you melancholy, I won't read that out. But in terms of transparency and clarity of what's in this is superbly documented. I mean, you've got the exact percentage, and then what the different elements are precisely, and non-chill filtered, non-colored. But unusually, I think for a blend, there aren't that many blended whiskies out there that are out on the market at 46% ABV.
Yeah, I think the reasoning behind that, there was two reasons. So the first was we didn't want to chill filter this, and if we were doing this for the Irish market, we might have got away with it at 40% from that point of view. But this is a whiskey that we want to send across the world, so it's going to be sitting on ships in containers, and it's going to be sitting in storage in North America and Northern Europe and places like that where it gets cold during the winter. And if you have whiskey that's unchill filtered and it's not above 46%, there's a risk of forming a haze in the liquid. And there's nothing wrong with that from a flavor point of view or a product point of view, but it's not visually acceptable, and it will be rejected and sent back to you. So basically, that was a very technical issue that we sort of had to say, right, let's go with the 46, so we don't have to chill filter. But also, if you chill filter, you're taking out proteins and you're taking out esters and their flavor, and they're the very thing that you've been trying to blend and trying to put into the whiskey. So and again, there are mixed views on this, but the safest way is leave the whiskey at 46% and keep the flavor in. And then the other point about that is that the being at 46%, some people like to drink their whiskey at a higher ABV, and 46% is just a nice. People can have it with a drop of water. It's good actually for cocktails as well, to have it at a slightly higher ABV. So and the other point about that as well is that it was informed by kind of what we were hearing from customers, not just in Ireland, but customers, our distributors internationally as well. They were saying, yeah, if you want something, we're looking for something that is coming in at 46% or thereabouts.
Yeah, there are a couple of other things on this now that are very interesting as well that you wouldn't normally see, and that is the inclusion of this new standard of QR code. Can you, for those that aren't familiar with this new standard, can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, so and again, we were talking about the Irish Whiskey Association and Drinks Ireland, and this is one of the benefits of being involved in that, is you get visibility of things that are coming down the track. So Drinks Ireland are part of Spirits Europe, which is the kind of umbrella body for spirits, and this e-label project was in development with Spirits Europe and the wine producers. So this was launched in Brussels on the 30th of September. And, we had the opportunity, and again, I suppose the benefit of being a small business is you can get involved in these things and make a decision quickly and just decide you're going for it. But what this does is it people can scan this, it gives the consumer information on the nutrition and energy content of the liquid, but also environmental and ingredient information. So it's a pan-European project, so the information is there. Anyone can scan this. If you're in Slovenia, you can click on the thing and put the language to Slovenian, and it'll translate automatically. So it's a very, very powerful thing, and it's I suppose it's best practice in the industry, and it's something that, you know, we're very keen and very happy to have been involved in, and we're very happy, I suppose, to have been the first Irish whiskey to have it on our label.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that. I think anything that adds, you know, transparency without making it over. I mean, the information is all here on the label, and it's not overly complex. It's easy to understand. It all makes sense, and you know, the embossing on the label and everything is fantastic. So, like I said, congratulations. What's it going to retail at?
It's going to retail at 46 euros a bottle here, which listen, you know, is the price point. We've got to cater for the additional excise duty in it, which is unfortunate, but yeah, we think it's well positioned in the category.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the amount of detail that has gone into it, and obviously you're not dealing with huge scales. Is this going to be an ongoing SKU in your portfolio, or is it a limited run?
No, absolutely. This is one that we like. The whole, I suppose, idea of this is that we have a product, a good quality product that we can produce again and again and build a volume category for, you know, and build market share, like, and build our export markets. Like, going back to the single casks again, you know, we can't really service an export market to any extent with it, because we simply, if you've only 300 bottles in a cask, you've only 300 bottles in a cask.
Sure.
So, you know, if we've customers saying, look, we want a pallet of Irish whiskey, can you give it to us? Now we can with the Barts. We can say, absolutely, this is what we have in volume, and if it sells well for you, we'll have more of it for you. So it gives us a consistency in the business and allows us to grow from where we're at and grow our customer base with alongside it as well, you know, so with our Lough Ree products.
Yeah, look, I've been snipping this for the last few minutes, trying to not take. I mean, there's great legs in it, and I'm not saying. I mean, I wouldn't say it's. If I thought it was bad, I wouldn't say it was bad. But you know, I actually think there's an awful lot going on here. It's a complex whiskey, and on the nose, it's fantastic. I mean, I do get those notes of peat.
Yeah,
and I think, you know, it was described as the pear on it as well. And I definitely get the pear, and it's the garden pear as opposed to the super ripe pear you get in the supermarket. It's kind of
I have them in my own garden at the moment, Sergius, and
is that where this came
what
from?
to do with them? Yeah.
No, it's unusual at this price point. Certainly at this price point, to get so much going on in it. But perhaps you might want to take us through the tasting element of it. Don't all.
Yes. So on the nose, we're getting kind of we're getting those pear notes. We're getting kind of toasted marshmallows, that sort of elements on it, and then there is a spiciness to it as well, and it's kind of like a Christmassy spice. It's like a cinnamon, that you'll pick up there, and there is a touch of peat in it as well.
Is that mostly from the rye, the spice, or is it from the pot still, or both?
I'd say it's a bit of both, and I'd say it's probably both. Again, it's hard to tell when you put it all together.
When we were doing this, and we kind of were dialing up and down the pot still and the rye, you know, and very subtle changes. You know, we did a number of iterations of kind of, hang on, we've lost something we had in the previous version here by a really small tweak. So it's very, very subtle.
Yeah. Well, I put lips to liquid, and I have to say, yeah, there's a lot going on there. First thing that hits me is the spice, you know, on the side of my tongue.
Yeah. There's a fruitiness to it as well.
Yeah.
Which again, you know, you're getting that's coming in from the different malts and from the sherry. You have that spice, and there is that kind of caramel, burnt sugar, or not burnt sugar, but caramelized sugar side of things to it. And then, you know, the spice carries through as you're going through to the finish. So the spice is there, and you get this oiliness, which again is coming from the pot still, definitely. And the peat is there. It's coming through as well. So it's
the peat is lovely. The peat really adds something to it. It's definitely not overpowering on the peat. It's just a subtle.
It's in there, and I mean Sheila wouldn't be drinking it if there
No,
was a significant chunk of peat in it. So,
I'm not a peated whiskey person at all.
Yeah.
So and I kind of, but I do like that. It's subtle. It's not, peat. Every time I hear them talking about peated, my eyes get bigger.
I think there was one iteration where the discussion, I wouldn't say it lasted longer than 15 seconds.
Yeah,
on it, where the sample came back and Sheila was the first to taste it, and it was no. End of story. Let's go back a step or two here.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't hold myself out as being either the technical or the taste expert of the team. But if you don't like it, if I don't like it, lots of other people won't like it as well. So that's
And I think
I get a touch of coconut on this as well. Very slight touch of coconut on the end. It's nice, but I have to say, and again, it's very difficult to, convince people you're being objective. But it's very well balanced. Is the one thing that, and yet there's still a lot going on.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think one of the things I love about tasting and doing tastings with people, and I was on one as a punter on the Irish Whiskey Association or Irish Whiskey Society last week. Everyone taste is subjective, and everyone will pick up different things and be more sensitive to different things in it. But so that's part of the beauty of it, and we've obviously picked up what we've picked up in this, and but I'm interested to hear back from people again what they pick up.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised how long it is as well, because you don't really normally associate blinds with having a long finish, but this does have that long finish.
It does, yeah. No, what I mean, I think we could have gone the route of an 80-20 grain malt blend or a 70-30 or whatever, and there's lots of lovely whiskey out there that is that, but we wanted something that again added something different to the category and added something that's a little bit unusual, has a little bit more going on, and I think piques people's interest, gives bartenders and people who like making cocktails, gives them something that actually adds a depth of flavor to what they're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, in the ultimate sense, it kind of squares the circle in terms of the brand story, and around their dad and around the complexity and the complexity of the clock. There's an awful lot going on here, and I think we've managed to, in the same way as he'd solve a problem with a clock, we've managed to get all the constituent parts working together harmoniously. Some of them are very, very small, some of them are much bigger, but we've got them in this kind of fine balance where they're keeping perfect time. And again, as Mike said, that's subjective and might be different for another man, but it certainly was a process that took a fair degree of time to kind of arrive at that solution, and we did have some external input in it as well from guys who probably know an awful lot more about whiskies than we do, to be honest, as well. So you know what I mean. It wasn't just us taking a flyer on it. We were very careful with how we put it together.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, I think it's excellent value at €46. It's amazing value. I think you obviously you're getting the spirit, you're getting the transparency, you're getting the complexity and long finish. Beautiful bottle. I think. I mean, is the idea to have Bart's in many different iterations down the road?
I suppose I'll keep these two quiet. Kind of an open mind on that, but largely this is Bart's. This is the release of Bart's. But that's not to say that at some point there mightn't be a slightly different spin on it. There mightn't be some other slight finish on it or something, or a special edition for for some market or whatever. But at the moment, this is Bart's and this is what it is. This is the core product.
Yeah.
You'd be
And it
amazed at
does
what comes
drink.
out of Mike's mind, Sergius. I mean,
I know
those-
Mike
you
quite
know,
well, so I can imagine.
like,
I can imagine he's
we
been.
have the handbrake on most of the time, to be honest with you. You know.
Not just on Mike.
Well, look, I mean, Kevin is asking there. Is it lightly peated? It is lightly peated. It's
Lightly
definitely,
peated,
yeah, and there's not
So-
that iodine note at all off it as well. It's definitely peated, but I actually think it's excellent value. And
thanks for that, Sergius.
congratulations. I'd be interested to see now what our tasters think of it when they review it in the next issue. But
Absolutely, yeah.
so we'll cover it then.
Approaching that with some trepidation, I think, but they liked our the station whiskey when they reviewed it. So
yes, yeah, the station went down well. So look, I think it's a great story. I think it's a great tribute to your father. I'm sure he would have loved it, and I don't want to get all emotional for you. I know I can imagine it's a massive moment for you in the sense of seeing this out there. But I'm just honored that you chose to share it with us and with our audience. And I just want to congratulate you on what you've done so far, and I'm sure, as you said, it's just the beginning of the journey. Hopefully we'll come back for your first distillery release in a while as well and talk about that. But I just want to wish you the very best of luck and congratulate you on Herculean effort that must have gone into this. Really, genuinely.
Listen, you get used to it after a while, I think, but no, it's thanks a million, Sergius. I mean, and listen, thanks for facilitating us as well. I mean, it's
well, we've got some fabulous comments in, particularly some very warm ones about your father. Referring to him as a legend and having taught people there. So, a very fitting tribute, and I hope you get to enjoy the moment. And I'm sure you'll enjoy the whiskey anyway. At this stage, but yeah, so what's the future hold then for you guys? What are you looking forward to most out of lockdown being over, and what are the immediate future plans?
So, I mean, really, you come out of the whole COVID experience, and I think I sort of said earlier, you kind of find yourself by accident or design with this business that's actually in a much more resilient position. So, we have an enhanced portfolio of our own brands. We have our branded experiences, which is the gin school here, and we have our distillery yard coffee enterprise in Lanesboro. And then there's actually a world of kind of, we call it third party business, where we kind of facilitate other things. We create small brands for other people. And ultimately we're a distillery, so we're in the business of making alcohol and selling it, and sometimes that doesn't have to have your own brand on it, and sometimes there's viable levels of business in that too. So we've kind of fortuitously found ourselves in this position post COVID, where hang on here now, we've a number of independent revenue streams, and we have an opportunity to kind of put the pedal down on this business and drive it forward at a rate of knots. And getting to the kind of completion of the bigger distillery is obviously key in that, but there's an awful lot of stuff we're currently doing which is independent of that too, right? And they, I suppose the challenge for us going forward is to carve out the routes to market necessary for Bart's, and bring some of our other products in on top of it, and to grow the business as we feel it has the potential to grow across these kind of 2 or 3 different sectors. And I think this business isn't a business for the short term. Okay, not as in Lough Ree Distillery, as in this whole kind of distilling business isn't a business for the short term. Absolutely. So, we look back now to where we were 3 years ago, and you think, God, we've come an awful long way. And I hope in 3 more years we'll look back and we'll have come an awful long way further. And we'll look back on today and we'll be kind of sniggering, saying, God, can you believe we've done that? Because we'll have progressed on. So, that's what the future holds for us, is to kind of, we've a real simple vision in the business. It's to bring to the world from our hometown of Lanesboro the finest, most highly regarded Irish spirits. And you know, inherently that's kind of, if you cut us nearly at this stage, we'd bleed that.
Yes.
So everything we kind of do subscribes to that. And you know, when will we have achieved that? Well, it's probably when, you know, my grandchildren go into a pub in Terra del Fuego or something and see Bart's on the shelf. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, that's it's the kind of constant motivation, and it's the you know, that kind of drive, I suppose, that there's huge potential. There's huge potential in the area. There's huge potential in the sector. There's huge potential in the business, and we've come an awful long way. We're still alive after COVID, personally and in a business sense, and we just see a kind of world of opportunity out there in front of us, and we're going to go and get it. It's as simple as that, you know.
Well, look, I mean, I think I've said it before. I mean, we don't really do product launches on this show at all, you know, and it's nice to, if you like, have some an opportunity to support a business that there is, from our viewpoint, nothing but authenticity and hard graft and honest work behind. So, you know, that's why we wanted to, and delighted that you chose us to launch the product on this show. But it's been a great story of, you know, of family. It's been a great story of rural life and tenacity to get through the difficult period that you have. And just all I can do is wish you the very best of luck going forward with it. I think it deserves to do well. I think it's great value, actually, for what it is. You know, you could have gone $49.95 at least instead of 46. But
I shouldn't be hearing that now, Serge.
No.
You know, I shouldn't be hearing that.
Yeah.
But you know, look, congratulations to you all. Thank you so much for doing us the honor. As I said, can only wish you success. And with the ongoing distillery, best of luck with that. I will be down to visit soon as that is open, and do keep us informed and let us know what's happening. And
Super, Sergius.
It's brilliant.
thank you very much. Well, look, I suppose a toast to Bart would
Thanks
make
very much.
Cheers.
would make
Bart,
sense.
Bart.
So
To Bart.
Slánse.
Slánse.
Thank you, Sergius.
yeah, Slánse, best of luck.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergius.
Good evening. I'll let you go, and peace and
Thanks.
quiet.
Thanks, Sergius.
Mind yourself.
Slánse.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. What a tribute to a father. Amazing. And the father seemed like a real character, and you know, I love these stories because they're genuine, and they are giving back to the local community and putting Lanesboro on the map. You know, in a town that was affected badly by the loss of jobs there. So congratulations to them. Thank you all very much for joining us. I really appreciate your participation. If you have enjoyed the show, please do give us a like, and look forward to our next show. So in the meantime, take care. Slánse. Good night.